Hey guys, King of Charmander is here. Today I'll be a judge, your jury, and your analyst. And today I bring to you from ytxpikachu. Make sure you follow his socials, they're on the description. This data of the top 10 leads in the Season 8 Ultra League Remix, Part 2. So this is every week usually data will adjust, so this is the second week of Ultra League Remix. So just like a long, let's see, what can I make a comparison to 2 weeks? I don't know, like how long Niantic Chat have been meeting about how much the stop and gym's ranges should come back, because Niantic seems to have no idea like what they're doing. If you've ever watched the episode of where Clefairy on like the first season of Pokemon, where if you've seen it when you were a child, you had an amazing childhood just like me. Clefairy's on Mount Moon, there's a machine, and it's pushing buttons. That seems to be like Niantic right now. But we are not going to push buttons today because I give you the top 10 leads of the Ultra League Remix. So, unlike Ferris Bueller's Day Off where we're skipping school, today I will take you to school, and I will quickly analyze the top 10 leads for the Ultra League Remix Part 2. Anyways, let's get started. Alright, so lead number 10 is kind of surprising. Well, not really. So Giratina Origin, one of the only legendaries allowed in the Ultra League Remix, is actually in 2.8% of leads. So, and also in 7% overall of teams. So in other words, a lot of teams are using a Giratina Origin in the lead. Gyro in the lead is very interesting because as you see here, it doesn't actually rank super high on the spectrum. It's only at number 44. It does really well though because you catch the psychic types as well as Machamp, which is also a popular lead, so it does incredibly well. The issue with Giratina Origin is that you lose the 2 shields against things like Jellicent. Yes, it's bait dependent, but Jellicent is extremely bulky, Gyro is not. And Alolan Ninetales, which is just really interesting. As you see here, basically with what you lose against, as you see here, which are all pretty much the popular leads, but people are still using Giratina O. However, the thing is, Giratina O is part of the most powerful team in Ultra League Remix Part 2 per data, so it is part of the most powerful team, so it's not to be underestimated. As you see here, best used in the lead are the closer, 2 break shields, or nuke your opponent to oblivion. Has a fairly, the interesting thing is it's not like super bad to use. Like, it's not that bad. There's pressure, as you see, it's shield pressure, it's defensive, etc. It just doesn't have the greatest bulk in the world compared to a lot of other leads in Ultra League Remix. Fairly easy to beat, like I mentioned here. You lose against a lot of leads, but Giratina O leads do beat Psychic and Fighting type users most of the time. You won't win against a lot of Ghost type users unless you boost with Ominous Wind. So, you don't have to run this moveset. The number 1 Team 1 that was using Giratina Origins was using Ominous Wind, and if you boost, it's a nightmare. Alright, at number 9, we have another legendary, Armored Mewtwo, at number 14 in the lead for Ultra League Remix. Armored Mewtwo is actually in a little bit of teams at 3% in the lead, so number 9. You won't see this too much, but it's still very powerful, and overall, a lot of people were using it at 14.1%, so 1 out of 10 teams had an Armored Mewtwo in it. Armored Mewtwo is a beast though, because with Side Strike and Dynamic Punch, you have a wide coverage against the Ultra League Remix meta. You're able to take out Nidoqueen, of course, because poisons are weak to Psychics, things like Politoed, Abomasnow, of course the fighting types. Your key losses are, of course, basically to Ghosts, as you see here, anything with Ghost type attacks or Galarian Stunfisk, just because G-Fisk does resist Confusion and Side Strike. You can Dynamic Punch it, G-Fisk, but G-Fisk also has a sizable amount of bulk in the Ultra League Remix, so just keep that in mind. But other than that, it's still a very powerful lead. The only con about Armored Mewtwo is that it's kind of inaccessible. Unless you really played around that time when Armored Mewtwo was out or get it traded to you, you probably don't have one in storage. But don't worry about it because it's only the number 8 lead, but it still does very well against a lot of top Ultra League Remix meta. That's why at 3.8, surprisingly at 3%, it's still a popular lead. And at 3.4%, we have Thick Boy or Thick Girl Snorlax. This Snorlax has a big booty, a lot of bulk, and a lot of viability, and it is a fan favorite. So Snorlax, just a lot of this, like, if you like food, Snorlax is definitely one of your favorite Pokemon. Gen 1 favorite, Snorlax is at 3.4%, so fairly popular lead. Does really well against a lot of things, that's why it's rated fairly high. It's in the top 40. And the interesting part about it is that 43.4% were shadows. So either the shadow or the regular one, either one works. It just depends on which one you're used to. I'm going to analyze the shadow one and both of them just really quickly. But as you see here, the reason why Snorlax is really good is it's kind of a great core breaker. As you see here, you threaten things like Galarian Stunfisk, of course Jellicent, the ghost type archetypes, you threaten them a lot. You also threaten Abomasnow as well as Drifblim. It is very, very versatile and one of the cheaper options in the Ultra League Remix. As you see here, Armor Mewtwo goes down as well. Basically, Armor Mewtwo can take out Snorlax just because of Dynamic Punch. You can eat a few Side Strikes, but you can't eat a Dynamic Punch. So, as you see here, you also lose against things like A9, of course, fighting types. Nidoqueen also gives you an issue just because it's able to lower your defense with Poison Fang. And of course, Deoxys defense, just because of the sheer virtue it has counter, is super thick, can beat you as well. But again, cheap option, still really great, and a lot of people are still using it at 3.4% as a lead. Best used as a switch, but as you see, it also functions as a lead, and there's a lot of people using it. Not too much of a difference between the 33, the shadow, or the regular one. As you see here, you basically have the same weaknesses, just in the 2 shield. Snorlax can actually pick up Galarian Stunfisk at certain points because it's still very dependent on whether or not you get hit by an Earthquake or not. So as you see here, the regular version can beat Galarian Stunfisk, which is kind of the key highlight versus the other one, but it's still a bait dependent matchup as you see here, because if you're in the 2 shield, Snorlax can still lose. You have to superpower it to death. And yeah, you basically have to superpower it. If you shield Earthquakes, you can come out of this matchup just fine. So you can take a few Rock Slides, but if you shield Earthquake, or if you call the Earthquakes, as you see here, so if you shield both Earthquakes, take the Rock Slides, Snorlax can come out with a W. So you can, if you're bait, it's very bait dependent, but regular one can win the 2 shield against G-Fisk. Alright, we got 4 Punch Man or Woman, depending on which one you have, because Machamp can be female. What I meant to say was that Machamp and Snorlax tied at 3.4%. Machamp is also another option in here that's kind of budgety, because, you know, it's not super expensive compared to a lot of, it's not XL and it's not legendary. Machamp's at 10.4%, so it used to be the number one, like most common one, but it drifted off as more teams got situated and the meta started settling down. Still really good though at 3.4%. 58% were actually using the shadow version. So the shadow version versus the regular version works really, really well. I'm not going to go over Machamp too hard just because Machamp basically destroys G-Fisk and Abomasnow. It can also beat Alolan Ninetales with Cross Chop. Of course, its biggest weakness are Psychic and Ghost types, as well as Nidoqueen, just because they all resist your counters. So other than that, Machamp still is a budget beast, and the problem is, it's just a glass cannon. So if you lose the lead, just switch out with Machamp. Other than that, if you do win the lead, you will put heavy pressure on your opponent. Alright, next up we got Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz is at 3.9%, so Mandibuzz not as popular as the other ones, but it's still up there in the top 10 leads at 13.4%. This is when XL start coming into play. In the lead, Mandibuzz is very interesting because reason why it's good is because it takes out the Psychic and the Ghost archetype. See the pattern here? Also, it being a Dark type, you can also beat Snorlax because you resist Lick. Its key losses are to Galarian Stunfisk just because you drop by a bunch of rocks. Politoed can Weather Ball you to death. Shadow Champ can also beat the unholy crap out of you just because of the fact that it resists Snarl. If this is Air/Mandibuzz though, Mandibuzz will do a lot, has a lot more utility, just because of the fact that you are able to cover things like Machamp, etc. Also, Abomasnow, which are ice types, well, flyers are weak to ice, and Nidoqueen, just because Nidoqueen is able to lower your defense, and it has Poison Fang, and, well, because of Poison Fang. The problem with Mandibuzz is basically like the low fast move pressure, like I mentioned with Snarl. It is extremely bulky, however, super high stat product, and still a very popular lead at 3.9%, so it's still a popular lead, and overall there were 13.4%, so 1 out of 10 teams had a Mandibuzz in them, so still a popular lead, very powerful, just very, very expensive. Alright, so at 20% overall, meaning literally 1 of 5 teams had a Politoed XL in it, and Politoed XL is at 9.8%, so that means a few people were using the Shadow. But the interesting thing, it's actually a very popular lead at 4.6. So it's in like the top 7 for Politoed. And like I said, it's really good in the lead just because of that Weather Ball pressure. It does beat G-Fist and Alolan Ninetales in the 2 shield. You can also beat things like Gira O, Nidoqueen, of course, because ground's weak to water, and Snorlax. So it's actually very, very versatile against a lot of popular leads. Now, against Gira O, you have to Blizzard it to, well, Earthquake it to death, but it's still not that bulky, so you still have W's. As you see here, best used as a switch or closer, but their ratings are close enough to it really doesn't matter. It's really just the pressure or shield pressure that a Politoed XL uses. I wouldn't say it's super accessible, but Politoed XL, as you see here, is definitely used a lot. And like I said, it has the second most popular usage at 20%, so 1 of 5 teams had a Politoed in the lead. Alright, next up we have G-Fist. So G-Fist was at 5.8%, and just like Politoed, at 19.9%, so almost 1 out of 5 leads our teams had G-Fist in it. And as a lead, it's the number 4 lead, and it's really freaking good. As you see here, beats a lot of various, basically, poison types, as you see here, able to beat Alolan Ninetales, as well as a wide variety of mons, just because of Rock Slide and Earthquake pressure. You do lose to Jellicent, but that's if Jellicent has Bubble Beam. Also, you do lose against things like Driplim, because it can debuff you, and it's just super bulky. Things like Snorlax can take you out. Of course, Politoed will take you out as well. Still, G-Fist is incredibly powerful, being basically, if you look at its stat product, it has a super high stat product at 4469. Those last 2 numbers are absolutely amazing. And it is the most powerful switch in the Ultra League Remix, statistically. It's really good and it's really powerful. The only con about it is just the fast move pressure. But most of the time, you're going to be breaking shields or just wiping out your opponent with Pancakes. So, like Pancakes, Galarian Stunfisk is at 5.8%, so a very popular lead as well in the Ultra League Remix. Alright, at 6.3%, it's the number 1 lead in the freaking Ultra League Remix, is Jellicent. The Pringles, Mr. or Mrs. Pringles man, or whichever one how you view it, it is insanely... I love the design, but it's the number 1 lead, and at 6.3%, it's very powerful. It's in 1 of 5 teams at 18% overall. So it's very, very popular in the lead, and it's not hard to see why. It takes out G-Fist, the Fighters, Psychic type, well, Alolan Armor Mewtwo is pretty much the only Psychic, Giratina Origin, as well as Alolan Ninetales. In other words, even though it's super meta, it beats the heck out of a lot of popular leads that are on this list. With your key losses to Regirock, Abomasnow, Snorlax, of course, just because Snorlax does resist Hex, and Lick is super effective against you. But very popular, very powerful. The problem is it's very hard to play and it's extremely expensive. Jellicent XL is not easy to get. It takes a lot of work to get it, but if you do have one, it is extremely powerful and is the number 1 lead overall, statistically. And like I said, it's a top 5 lead, so definitely expect to see Jellicent XLs in the lead for the Ultra League Remix. And I don't know how the heck you have a Nidoqueen XL. Well, some of you have played for a long time, so you do have a lot of those Nidoran candy from those Nidoran events. But Nidoran XL, well, not Nidoran, Nidoqueen XL is one of the top 5 leads at 6.4%. So compare, like, it's not too far off from the top 5. 15% of teams had a Nidoqueen, and 18.3% were using Shadow. So not too many were using the Shadow version. But either way, Nidoqueen is very powerful in this meta as a lead, just because of its ability to... It resists the fighting types, as you see here. You also have a lot of play with Poison Fang, the Poison Fang bug. You can debuff a lot of things. The only issue is you die to Psychic types a lot, and of course, Ghost types do resist you, as well as Water types, which is why all of your weaknesses are things that either resist Poison or are super effective against Nidoqueen. Other than that, Nidoqueen is an incredibly powerful lead. If you do win the lead, you can choose to debuff your opponent and force them to switch out, or you could choose, there's a lot of fancy plays you could do with the big problem being that it's XL, and it's really expensive. But like I mentioned, 6.4%, not too far off from Jellicent, the previous one, so it's definitely a top 5 lead, which is Nidoqueen, and yeah, both versions were being used at... And more of the regular version though, so the regular version was being used way more than the Shadow one. Not too much of a difference of what it flips and what it doesn't flip though. As you see here, Pidgeot's banned, so it doesn't really matter. However, regular Nidoqueen does have more of an option against Snorlax versus the Shadow one. And at number 2, we got Scrafty XL. Not really surprised, Scrafty was in a lot of the top teams. It's very popular, and for good reason. Scrafty is at 6.7%. And just like Jellicent, around 18%, so about 1 in 5 teams had a Scrafty in it. Scrafty is really good because it breaks the G-Fist Jellicent. A lot of the popular teams had a G-Fist Jellicent or in them, so Scrafty does really well against both. You could rev up with Power Up Punch, or just because of Foul Play doing so much damage, you could do very well against things like Giratina Origin. Of course, your biggest weakness are going to be fighting types or basically Alolan Ninetales, just because Alolan Ninetales is a very, well, it's just spammy, that's the problem. Anything that has fast move pressure over you will give you a hard time just because Power Up Punch doesn't exactly do a lot of damage. It revs you up, but if you don't win the lead, you have to stay switch out just like in any other situation. As you see, Scrafty is best used in the closing position, but its second best position is in the lead. Like I mentioned, a lot of top teams had Scrafty in the lead, so that's why it's really freaking... But it's really good because it does take out, like I mentioned, the Ghost type as well as G-Fist. So, takes out the Ghost type archetypes, G-Fist, Ice type, Snow Snow, as well as Politoed. If you have a Scrafty that revs up, it's one of your worst nightmares. And at the second most popular lead at 6.7%, it's really that good. Alright, and the most popular lead, the most common lead at 8.4%. And a really interesting statistic in this sense is that the thing about Alolan Ninetales, 24.5%. That means it was used the most, it's the most popular lead as well as the most used XLmon in all teams. 1 in 4 teams have an Alolan Ninetales in them. And it's insanely powerful. It's able to take out the Flying archetype, the Ghost archetype, well, most of the Ghost archetype as you see here, with Driplim, Giratina Origin. You're also able to take out the Flyers in Lugia. You're also able to take out Snow. The issue with Alolan Ninetales, you do lose to fighters. Well, not really fighters, but Shadow Champ, just because Shadow Champ and Cross Chop is just so powerful. You can also lose to G-Fisk, as well as things that will pressure you like Politoed. Nidoqueen does do super effective damage against you, and that's just pretty much why you lose, even though Ice versus Weather Ball. But it's just because Nidoqueen is super effective against Fairy. Also, Jellicent does beat you as well, just because a Powder Snow is resisted. So, incredibly powerful mon, insanely popular, and just super strong overall. As you see, really good in every position. The only problem with it is that it's volatile, meaning there's double weaknesses to it, which is why Rock as well as Poison. However, Alolan Ninetales is insanely powerful, does a lot of spam with Weather Ball, is very, very bulky, and there's a lot of play out of it because as you see here in the lead and the closer, it's really strong. So if you have it in the back with no shields, it could possibly Dazzling Gleam or Weather Ball your opponent to death, and it's the most popular lead in the Ultra League Remix. A lot of people are using Alolan Ninetales XL. And for good reason. In the Southern Hemisphere, you can actually get a little, like Vulpixes. There was spawning a lot, so you could get a lot of XL for Alolan Ninetales. And also, Gen 1's been out for a while, so Vulpix XL might be a lot more accessible. But again, 8.4%. So to put in perspective, it's 2% above the rest of them, so you can expect to see Alolan Ninetales in Ultra League Remix if you're playing. I've actually seen quite a few since I've been playing, and it's kind of annoying because my lead is weak to Alolan Ninetales. And that's GG's. I actually analyzed 11 leads instead of 10 just because of the fact that Snorlax and Machamp were tied. So I was like, you know what, let me just do 11. But basically a lot of your top leads, as far as this pattern goes, a lot of them are XL. Out of the 11, a majority were XL Pokemon. So not super surprised to see that in there. Again, because it's all over the place, so really it's basically who goes. Ferrothorn is a great core breaker of the Alolan Ninetales Jellicent core, but out of that, Ferrothorn wasn't actually a very popular lead. However, it was used in 3.7% of teams, so a lot of things that could potentially core break a lot of these Mons weren't actually being used a lot either, so that's what makes it really interesting. It really just shows that A9 or the top 10 I showed you are really that dominant and are just really that good in the lead. If you hate Ultra League Remix, you might want to consider Open Ultra League just because way less I mean, it has XLs, but legendaries are a lot, that meta is a lot easier to gauge than Ultra League Remix. To put in comparison, the week 1 had Machamp in front, now it's just XL Hell. Literally XL Hell in the second half. Hopefully this data does help you out though. A lot of your top leads will be XL, like I said, so just keep in mind it's going to be an extra large feast for your opponent unless you're using XLs as well. If you can do me a huge favor, please like and subscribe. This data came out yesterday, so I made a video as soon as I can, so hopefully this data might help you out. And liking and subscribing is totally free. You can easily subscribe by using the little box to the bottom right. Put your mouse over it, sub tab will pop up, and you can easily subscribe. Helps me for my goal of 3K subs by the end of the year, and for all you already subscribed, I really do appreciate you. Good luck in your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.